Welcome to the Live Your Possible podcast, the show about sparking and discovering endless possibilities where we work, live, and play. A safe place where we can help you peel back the cover to what may be blocking you from being your most authentic and happiest self.
I'm excited to share that Nicole Hughey is our guest today in the Live Your Possible podcast. She's an award-winning executive leader specializing in diversity, equity, and inclusion, social impact, strategic planning and execution, organizational effectiveness, and a cross-cultural communication expert. In her 25-plus years career, Nicole has been a trusted leader and advocate for all. She has established and operationalized diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies across multiple industries, including insurance, healthcare, and media entertainment. We met at an allyship conference over the summer at NYU, where we both spoke from our hearts on how to show up for others. This theme continues on today's show. Nicole speaks from a place of gratitude and self-reflection to how she wants to just be in 2025, a space where she is open to what is available and present, evoking joy by her way of being and being there for others. She's living out this boomerang experience where she puts good things out into the world and embraces its return in kind. Join this space today and begin to notice all the possibilities in front of you and contribute to this boomerang effect to help you live your possible today. Enjoy the show. Hey, Nicole, welcome to the Live Your Possible podcast. It's so nice to see you. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I can't complain. I won't complain. It does no good. And so I am ready to start this day from a place of possibility and a place of excitement, particularly as we go into this holiday season. So, I'm feeling good.
Yeah, it is the holiday season and it's cold.
Definitely. Definitely cold. Yeah, I'm sitting here, trying to manage the coldness that I have, trying to wrap myself in warm thoughts so that I don't shiver as we sit in this really, really cold temperatures today. So
Yeah, I'm sure you're gonna bring a lot of warmth today. So
that's what
I
I'm
look
hoping.
forward to the chat. And just curious, what's on the top of your mind today? What are you bringing into our conversation?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. And I'll start with possibilities. I have had a wonderful 2024, a trying 2024, an opportunity to reflect, to reset, to think about my life and where I wanted to go. And so, I'm thinking about how do I end 2024 and how do I move into 2025 from a place of resilience, from a place of peace, from a place of calm, and from a place of really knowing the value that I bring to life, whether it's for my family, whether it's for, my next opportunity. I am ready to move forward from a place of joy. And so that's what I'm thinking about today and all the wonderfulness and all of the challenges that come with it. I want to move forward with joy.
Yeah, I love that. When you think about joy, what does that look like? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I think about it all the time, but I think about it from really a place of what I bring to the world, right? And so for me, joy means making other people happy. I've always been somewhat of a pleaser, but not in a pleaser where I'm like sappy, right? But a pleaser where I want people around me to have the best that they can have. I want me to really have the best that I can have. So I want to please others and I want to please myself, right? And so when I think about joy, and I'll break it down in two different ways, right? So, joy when it comes to work is really about creating spaces where people can be their authentic self and doing that where people feel like they can show up to work and be valued, where they can show up to work to have their thoughts and their opinions are really listened to, where they can show up to work and be different and it's okay, where they can show up to work and just be happy to be there because they know what they bring, what they give is helping the success of the organization. And so that piece of it brings me joy. But I can't stop just there and I won't because it's not fair to all of my loved ones and all of my friends. I think about joy for my family as well. And what brings them joy is how I show up for them every single day, what I can bring to their lives to make it better. It's funny, I've been doing a lot of traveling in this downtime We'll talk about that later. And I've been to New York, right? A couple different times. And so I went to see this play called The Wiz. Have you ever heard of The Wiz?
No, haven't heard of that one.
So it's an adaptation of The Wizard of Oz. It is a Black cultural phenomenon. It came out, I think, in the 70s, maybe. And so I went to see this play with my mother and my daughter, and it was like girls' time. And it's funny because it's one of my favorite movies of all times and one of my favorite plays, but it really, I think, represents what I think about when it comes to my family, right? And so, The Wizard of Oz, maybe not the
Oh
Wiz,
yeah.
but The Wizard of Oz. And so, their characters and they all have these shortcomings, they think, until they go see the Oz. And then the Oz says, you already had everything you needed. And so, I think about what I do to help my family have everything they need. And I started to think about this as I was taking the train ride home and equating my family with these characters. And so it was this great moment where I said, oh my gosh, we could be this play, right? We could be the Wiz. And to think about how each of us have really shown up and how we've looked to, be happy in everything that we've done. And so I think about my husband, who, again, it'll be 30 years next year that we've been married, even longer since we've been together. And so we've been in each other's lives, ups and downs, wanting to see each other succeed, and I think about his journey in life, wanting to be an artist. So he's been a DJ since he's been about 12 years old, and he's wanted to be an artist, right? Showing his artistry, not only in being a DJ, but being the artist and creating music. And so I think about him, from an aspect of him being, if I had to give him a character, of him being the lion, right? And not thinking he had the courage to do what he needed to do to be an artist. And so, in this artist industry, age sometimes becomes a limiting factor. And so he wasn't sure if he can do it, if he had the courage to really step out on faith and do the things that he wanted to do. And so I am so happy to say that he has the courage. He did it. And I was there along for the journey, there to help cheer him on and say, you absolutely can do this. You might be, I won't share his age, but you look 30, right? You have the energy of a 30-year-old. So who cares about age? Just do what you got to do. And so I think about him, as it relates to being a lion. When I think about my, son, I think about heart and really him, feeling like he hasn't had the heart he needed. He is a basketball player. We've been doing basketball since he was like 6 years old. I often tell him, you owe me $5 million in fees because we've spent like so much money on basketball. But that's all he's wanted to do, is play basketball. He did it in high school. His senior year of high school, he had an ACL tear. He's had 3 ACL tears since his career began. He had a foot injury. And so he was feeling pretty down and wondering if what his life would be, right, without basketball. Luckily for him, he went to college. He played his last couple of years of college. He's now moved on and he's getting his master's and a grad assistant coach for the basketball team. And so that
Nice.
hurt that he didn't think he had has really held him down, is giving him that extra drive to say, I can do this. And I've been there along the journey for him around that, right? And then I think about my daughter, and I equate her sort of to the scarecrow, right? She is a child of COVID. So she finished her last year and a half of high school during COVID. We kept her home. We're like, yeah, we're not doing the school thing. We're going to be safe in this house. And so she had a good year, not the best couple years of high school, but good years. She went to college, and her first year of college was some of the same, right? It was right in the middle of COVID. So her expectations and her experiences were not quite what she wanted them to be. But even despite all of that, she has excelled. She's made the dean's list 3.5 years in her college course career. And her ability to use her brain to go beyond her circumstance has been wonderful. And so she graduates in the spring. She
Nice.
wants to be an FBI agent. I'm not quite
Fun.
sure how I'm feeling about that, but we'll see how that goes. But she wants to be an FBI agent. And so she's been able to use her brain to really overcome and think about, what's going to make her happy. And then I know this sounds crazy, but I think I'm Dorothy. I think I'm Dorothy. And I have struggled with finding home.
Mm,
Again, this whole opportunity that I've been faced with having a job elimination earlier this year, I've often struggled. What am I going to do now? Right? How am I going to take all of the skills, all of the passions that I have, and find a new place to really give of myself, right? To make an organization great. And the thing that's been so interesting is that home can be just a building, right? Home can just be a place. But for me, what I've discovered through all of the wonderful people who have come into my life, right? People that have said, you can do this. People like you, Darren, that have said, you know what? I see something in you. Let's talk about it. And what can I do to help? And
mm.
I've discovered that home can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be defined by a place. It could be wherever I set myself and wherever I can give of myself. And so I haven't really lost home. Home is going to be wherever I take it.
Mm.
And all of those things, right? And those characters really gave me this of like, you know what? Everybody's going to be just fine. That we're going to live our life to the way of the best of our ability. We're going to do the things that make us happy, and we're going to continue on our journey. And so, those are the things that bring me joy, what I can do for the work, and more importantly, what I can do for my family and keep us moving.
Yeah, very well said. I love the elements of, gosh, which character am I
Yeah.
right now? Because I think we could all probably think about that, within our respective families and where we come from. And it could, the thoughts there is that all of it's within ourselves. Like you talked about home, it's really wherever you are
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
wherever you're looking to help bring out the best in other people and what they don't see in themselves. You're giving them that gift. And I think that's so fulfilling what you're
It
doing.
it is, but it takes some time to get to that place. We're always so defined by where we're working, the
Yeah.
title that we have, the role that we have. And
Yeah.
I'll be really transparent. I worked my butt off, right? To get exactly to where I needed to
Yeah.
be or where I was. And so to have that removed sort of set me back some. But I had to remember who I am, what I'm about, what's important for me in order to move beyond sort of that angry phase to a phase of possibility to
Yeah.
say, I'm not going to be defined by dot, 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 dot. I'm going to do the defining. And so while I inherently have always thought about manifesting and legacy, sometimes you get kicked in the butt and you have to reground yourself. And that's exactly where I was a couple months ago. And I realize now that I'm open to moving beyond sort of my reality to my possibility that I'm good to go and that I'm going to be just fine.
Yeah. You see these setbacks as really kind of moving you in a different place. And you talked earlier about helping other people get into this space and different mindsets, like creating this place where people could actually step in and think about what's there, think about what's possible. Maybe this setback, or maybe there's other setbacks you've gone through that have gotten you to where you are. Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, I think they're necessary, right, as a part of the journey. But I think it takes some time to sort of come to that
Yeah.
realization. So again, I didn't see it coming. Well, let me take that back. I probably should have seen it coming, but I didn't want to see it coming, right? And that's a part of how do you balance sort of your realities, particularly when you have two very different realities. So setbacks that you don't see coming, I think are more devastating at times because you're not prepared. And I
Mm,
wasn't prepared for it, or I don't think I was prepared for it, but what I know now as I reflect is that it was absolutely the thing that was needed for me at the time, right? And I often think about journeys and, your journey being your own journey and your journey not matching or mirroring somebody else's journey. And
mm,
so when you come to the realization that what's for me is for me, then you become okay with the setbacks, okay with the challenges, because they make you better
mhm.
than where you were. And so, but again, it takes time. It does not come overnight. I'm telling you, there were days where I was like, I need to go have several cups of something. I won't say what, but several cups of something to really just manage my own personal, thoughts about where I was. It's interesting because I listen to the radio, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Steve Harvey morning show. Steve Harvey is a really famous
Love
comedian.
Steve. Love Steve Harvey. Yeah.
Oh, do you listen
Yeah.
to his morning show?
I don't, but I love his, different things I've listened, about him. He had, I don't know if it was a podcast or it was a post, it was one of those that lit me up one day that I just needed.
Yeah, he does that. And this is why I love him because he's also very reflective. And
Yeah.
I think of myself as very reflective. I have to sit back, sort of take it all in, think about what's happening, and then figure out what the lesson is. And
Mm.
he said something to your point about him, taking you back. He said something, this probably was a couple weeks ago. And I don't think it was his quote directly. He was saying what somebody else said to him. So I'm going to try not to mess it up. He said something around, you know what? I'm going to find it because it's really important. Give
Yeah.
me, let me,
Yeah. Take your time.
and it hit me like a ton. So he said, don't downgrade your dreams to fit your reality. Upgrade your conviction to match your destiny. Don't downgrade your dreams to fit your reality. Upgrade your conviction to match your destiny. And I'm telling you, Darrin, I was driving and I pulled over so I can write that down, right?
Yeah.
Because it hit me in a way that really struck my heart. It really struck my mind. And it put me in a place to really think about my dreams, as I mentioned, what I worked hard for, my reality, and then where I need to go. And I always talk about manifesting, right? And
Yeah.
manifesting my life and manifesting through my journey. And that statement from him took me to a whole nother place. And I said to myself, the journey is the journey. What happened to me does not have to be my reality. It happens to other people, and that's
Hmm.
fine. I needed to deal with what happened to me, but that is only a part of the story, and that the rest of my story has not been written. And so, what do I do now to write the rest of this story? Knowing that, I am inherently good. I always bring my authentic self to everything that I do.
Yeah.
I'm transparent. I look for win-wins for everybody, right? So I'm always of the disposition that there is a win-win here. And I think that's one of the things that has made me successful in corporate, that I'm always looking for the win-win. That sometimes means I got to give up something to get something, but I'm okay with that. It's
Hmm.
about the win-win for everybody, right? I always look for the good. I'm always trying to show up for others. And those are the things that I think have made me successful. And those are the things that I think have brought goodness back to my life. And so, I think about this whole boomerang effect, and I believe in boomerangs. You throw something out, it comes back to you. And I've been very grateful and very blessed that some great things have come back to me, even in the midst of a transition. And so, you know, the journey has not been written. The journey is a marathon and it's not a race. And I need to sit back, put on my best sneakers, put on the nicest sweatsuit that I can find, get the hair done, have the face done, and be ready for this life, this journey that we call life.
Yeah. It's ongoing. I
Yeah,
love all of that. And the manifestation piece, I think people underestimate the power in that, in
absolutely.
just putting thoughts out in the world, the boomerang effect,
Yeah.
putting joy out, putting love out there, putting whatever it is that matters to each of us authentically, to your point.
Absolutely. And it's authentically that counts, right? Because, people can see through. People, I think, and I use this all the time, they can see you, but they can also see your heart when it shows
Yeah.
up authentically. And so, I try to live my life being authentic in all of my relationships and
Yeah.
in everybody that I come across, because I believe that is a power to, like you said, of giving of yourself where others give to you. And so for me, it's never about being the loudest in the room, being the smartest in the room. It's about being the most present in the
Mm,
room. And that to me has opened up moments for others. It has opened up moments for me.
mm.
And it's about being present and being authentic and being present. So those are the things I think that really make your journey one that for me feels like it's legacy building. And I'm always thinking about my legacy. constantly. How do I show up in places, whether it's a workplace? How do I show up in interactions, making them better than they were before, I engaged or before I worked there? And legacy building has always been so critically important to me. I need to leave a mark. That mark may look different today than it did the other day or 5 years ago, but it's about leaving places better because I was able to engage in a very authentic way.
Yeah, every time we chatted, including now, you just warm me up because you are so genuine. You're so you. Your heart's out here, and I love it. Hopefully, you're warm over in your house because I know it's not as warm as you want it to be. Yeah, and you really put yourself out there, and it shows. And you've been awarded for being the DEI leader in different companies for the last couple of years. You've really put yourself out there. I I recall the Steve Harvey video, and I'll send you the link. It's
Okay.
it's called Jump,
Okay.
and I actually have it as part of my book because part of this, when I was going through my awakening and this setback, because I'm with you, like these setbacks really make us reflect: who am I for
Yeah.
real? What is
Mhm.
my identity showing up as?
Yep.
Am I being the person I'm meant to be here? And am I, impacting the lives that I want? Because I think we all want to do good in the world. I think
Absolutely. Agree.
they're not listening to this podcast if they don't. I can tell you
Yeah.
that right now. But it's called Jump. Sometimes we just got to go. Just
Yeah.
like your husband, got to take that jump of faith, and how Steve Harvey gets into it. It's amazing. It was really helpful for me just to say I'm worthy of this. I
Yeah.
could do
I
it was
love
very
that.
helpful.
So I know you're interviewing me, but I have some questions for you too. Like as we're just chatting, right? And it's around I'm worthy. And so how did you get to that point? Like what was your journey? Because I'm still writing that story for myself, right? We have times where we feel like we've done everything we're supposed to. We have times where we feel we've gotten the accolades one way or the other. And then something happens, you're like, okay, how do I get back to worthy? So what
Yeah.
was it for you? How did you get back to worthy?
Truly being who I am, back
Yeah,
to your point.
yeah,
Because if I was trying to be someone else, or I wasn't being as honorable as I could be or should have been
mhm,
at different times, then that's not me.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I'm more of a lover than a fighter, and
yeah,
I actually will share love, and I lead with love now than I ever did. I had to realize that I can have joy,
mm,
and it's not at the expense of other people.
yeah,
It's about helping people get to the place where they want to be and live their possible, see that they have the light in themselves, help them enjoy that. That feeds me, that fuels me.
yeah,
So it's more about putting the love and the possibilities and the light out in the world. So it is less focused on me, yet I love feeling that feeling when people light up and their eyes, they just pop.
yeah.
And I know what's happening is their lights coming out like, wait, I could do this.
It's funny and it sometimes seems counterintuitive, but for those of us that like to give to others, the fact that that helps us grow and develop is just a wonderful thing,
Yeah.
right? And seeing people do good, seeing people, be authentic and get exactly to your point what they deserve helps me.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I think those of us that really get comfort in seeing that, comfort in having people get those moments. I love that.
Yeah.
Like I love
Yeah.
seeing moments like, ooh, I didn't think about that. Ooh, maybe that's something I should do. Those are my favorites to
Yeah.
see those moments, right? Because it's growth. And in others' growth, I grow too. And so those things are, again, it's that boomerang. It's that boomerang. You
Yeah.
give it and it comes back. You give it and it comes back. And so we maybe you should do something called boomerang, Darren,
Yeah. I love it. Let's do that. Let's do that.
for sure.
You jumped into that moment. You shared a little bit. Are there other ones in your life that got you to this place of being that, recognized DEI leader? You're a voice for many. You're carrying and making an impact on millions of people. Are there moments that got you to this place, or like what happened?
Yeah, so I think, that was really about the importance of living in my truth, having a career where my passion, my skills were aligned. And in that alignment, I was just able to give all of who I am.
Yeah.
And so, that happened for me 3 companies ago, where I raised my hand and got this opportunity to do DE&I work. And I was filled from day one. I had gone to college. I got the good business degree because the business degree would get me the good job. All those things. I've always done exactly what I was supposed to do,
Yeah.
right? I'm that person, the oldest of two, and so the responsibility of setting the path, right? I've always been the go-to person for my family, and so the responsibility of giving good sound advice, right, was always there. I, as I mentioned, married my high school sweetheart, and so I wanted to do that. That wasn't around being the good person, right? That was something that I wanted to do. But all of those things set me up to a space where I was supposed to do these things, and I did just that. And so I had the good insurance job because that's what I was supposed to do. And then when this thing came, DE&I, years ago, I've been doing this work for about 15 or so years. I
Mm.
was like, ooh, this sounds risky, but this sounds good. And so I jumped into it. And I realized at that point that my skills, that my passion were all aligned. And I thought back to when I was a little girl. We all played these games as kids, and I was always the teacher. Like, it didn't matter. You all sit over there. I'm going to be a teacher today. And I realized through this work, I was able to teach not in a traditional way, but teach people about how
Mm.
to show up and teach companies around how to set up environments where people can show up. At the end of the day, companies put out products and services, but it does not matter if they don't have people that are happy to be there, that are happy because they're able to be their authentic selves. None of that matters. And so being in a position that I can help guide people, help guide companies towards, creating this wonderfulness around people being themselves was my first big, and I have ridden that for years.
Yeah.
Years. And so, those are the things when I think back to my career and my journey, those are the things that have happened that put me exactly where I needed to be at the time. It took me to a different industry and yet a third industry and put me exactly where I needed to be in those moments. And even now, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be
Yeah.
in transition, thinking about what's good for me, thinking about what's good for my family, because if I'm happy, then they're happy. Thinking about, working for a company who has values that are aligned with mine, working
Mm.
for a company where their leadership says exactly what they mean and mean exactly what they say, right? Being in a situation where my life can unfold in a way that, brings me comfort, that brings me a sense of peace is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And so I realized that I've had some small ahas. I've had one or two big ahas, but the journey has been filled with ahas. And that's the beauty of it for me, that every single day I have an opportunity to get in. One of the things that brought me unexplained joy was 2 years ago. What's this, 2024? Last year, where I was asked to be the commencement speaker for one of my alma maters, the University of Hartford. And I was like, you talking to me, right? You want me to be the commencement speaker for the undergraduate ceremony? And that was a full circle moment for me. Never in my wildest dreams had I thought that I would be a commencement speaker. And so that for that particular moment was that I've done the damn thing and that now I have an opportunity to speak to hundreds of graduating students and their families and share a little bit about my own journey in hopes that they will learn as they
Mm.
start to embark on their own journey. And so, these little ahas or big ahas are what life is made up of. I always say again, it's a journey, and those things we should be looking for, and those are the things we should be open to because we might not always see it coming, but it's there. And so how do we tune in, right, to
Yeah.
those things and be open to the possibilities of things that will change the course of our lives and hopefully put us on a path of living our ultimate, where again, as I said, skills and passion and purpose are all aligned so that we can do the best work and be the best people we can.
Yeah. Being open is a theme.
Yeah.
Being able to really be open-minded with curiosity, even just to be able to say, hey, I want to take in more, because it gets us to this broader space of possibilities that you're talking about. It's beautiful.
Right. Absolutely more and more. But not someone else's more, right?
Right.
Because I'm always careful not to try to mirror somebody else's path, but to be open to the more that's for me. Like I always say, what's for me is for me. And so I need to be okay with taking what's for me and not trying to take what's going on for somebody else.
Yeah. And when I also hear you go through this, more to some people is tiring.
Yeah,
What I'm hearing you say, it's expansive and energized.
it is. But there are times where it's exhausting,
Mm,
right? And
okay.
so I think opening up and knowing that that's a part of it too
Mm,
is what it needs to be. And so, I think about a year and a half ago where everything in the world of DE&I started to come crashing down, right?
mm,
Everybody was questioning everything. Companies started to shift in their seats. The Supreme Court took, made a decision that not everybody was comfortable with. And I started to think, oh my gosh, everything that I've worked for might start to come tumbling down. And so, I began to have all of this stuff spinning in my head about what am I going to do, not knowing that less than a year later, I would be a part of that come, tumbling down business. But what was I going to do? And it became exhausting.
mm,
DE&I leaders, for all that we bring, we've had to take on a lot of different roles and responsibilities in the last several years, right?
mhm,
We are strategists. We have to be, HR utility players as we partner with all of our HR functions to look for biases in processes and procedures. We've had to be confidants for employees who, by the way, years ago, when some of us have been working for a long time, where we knew that your personal life and your work life never came together, that's not the case anymore. And so
mm,
employees are bringing really their whole selves to work, and they often need somebody to be a confidant. And so have been a confidant for many employees. Had to think about being social justice warriors as the world around us, right, started to
mm,
doing a different kind of dance. And so it all became a lot. And those of us that do this work, many of us have become containers for all of that. And it was exhausting.
mm,
I mean, it was every day figuring out how to show up and being authentic, how to show up being for others, even when our own personal experiences might have bumped up against the experiences of others.
mm,
And so being able to balance all that has been exhausting. And so about a year and a half ago, I had my own health scare where stress was really starting to take its toll. And
mm,
I remember going into a conversation. I have a peer group of DE&I leaders, and we were meeting every month. And many people shared the stress that was taking a toll on them around doing this work. And I had, been diagnosed with high blood pressure, and it wasn't high, high, but high enough to be high. And I was like, oh no, like this cannot be my life. I'm too young. I'm too cute to be dealing with, right? All of this high blood pressure business. But it required me to take a seat and say, okay, it is time to reflect. It is time to figure out what are you going to do to manage not only the demands of work, but all the demands that come from being a working mom, and all the stuff that I do in the community to manage my health. And that was the point in time where I said, this has become overwhelming and I got to figure this out. And so, while I'm fortunate and blessed to know that I'm always thinking about joy, always thinking about how to get over, that there are real things that get in the way. And it stops us in our tracks and it makes us
mm,
rethink, how we're going to get back to the place where we're happy and whole from a health perspective, whole from a mental perspective, whole from whatever perspective you want it to be. How do you become whole in the midst of, things sort of getting in your way? And so I'm not silly enough to think that things won't happen, because they do. I do believe that things happen because they're supposed to happen, and things happen because they set you up, but they happen.
mm.
And so, what do you do to get over it? What do you do to get around it? What do you do to get under it so that we come out, right, better on the other side? But it's a process and a journey. And so we all, in our own way, have to deal with things that, get in our way.
Just to build on the DEI front for a minute, I'm curious about your take on, kind of where are we today? Where are we going? And what are your thoughts on this? And I'm sure you've had a lot of reflection, like you just mentioned, about how this has evolved over the last 15 years, let alone the last 100. I'd love to get your perspective on where do we go from here, from your perspective. What are you hearing? What are you choosing to do differently? I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah, so where are we going? I think we're staying the course, but doing it in a very different way. The fact of the matter is that the all of the benefits that DE and I bring to the world are still the benefits.
Mm,
Now, there are language challenges getting in the way. There are people getting in the way and trying to twist it to make it something that it's not. But the work is the work and the work must continue. And so, for somebody that's been doing this work for over 15 years, we know that it's cyclical, that things change, things get quiet, things get better, and they move in a different way, but they still have to move. And so the argument for why DE&I is important has not changed. In fact, it
mm,
should be stronger than it has been because the world around us is shifting in ways that we haven't seen. The world is going to be different, and we got to figure out how to play in a different space. But the work is the work. The need to make sure that people are getting rewarded for, being who they are, that they're getting hired into companies because of the diversity that they bring to do the good work. The need to make sure that people feel like they're included, that they feel like they belong, that there's some equity on the table is
mm,
still important. The need to show up as a company in the world in a space that people see you for who you are, that people understand that you're doing good things for the benefit of not only the company, for those companies that are for profit, but for the community around them. That, by the way, is changing and changing and changing.
mm,
So the work is the same. How we talk about it maybe needs to be different. I spent most of my career just getting people to understand, what does diversity mean? What does inclusion mean? What does an equity mean? And so on some, ways it saddens me that we have to let go of that, but encouraged by the fact that we let go so that the work can continue. We cannot let language be a barrier. If folks want to get hung up on the terms, okay, I'll call it ABC. At the end of the day, the work
right.
has to get done. And the tenets for good DE&I work are the same, and we have to keep pushing in that manner. What we need are companies to understand that DE&I just doesn't sit with the leader. In fact, I always say at the point that people think DE&I in a company is gone because the leader is gone, means we haven't done a good job as DE&I leaders integrating it into every single thing that we do. And that is where the real work is: integration. That
Mm,
means getting leaders on board to do what they need to do, to show up and be accountable for their actions. That means making sure that as products and services are created, that they are created in the mind of, we have a customer base that is more representative than we've ever seen. How do we make products and services that could connect with those people on the other end? That means showing up as good corporate citizens. How do we show up in these communities and be authentic? Because again, people see through the bull. And
mm,
so we have to be authentic. And in some cases, authenticity may mean we don't really know what we're doing right now, but we're trying. That's being authentic. And it's amazing how people give us grace when we can just show up and be authentic. Authentic in saying we're trying to do better. We might not know exactly how to do that, but we're trying to do better. And so it has to be integrated in everything we do. We have to let go of language. If it is a barrier, just let it go. Continue to do the work. I am not opposed to being stealth. I am not opposed to working and giving others the shine, because it should be about what we all do and not just what the DE&I leader is or is not doing. It has to be about both. So we are staying the course, despite people saying to me, don't you think you need a new career? This DE&I stuff might be. I'm like, I could, but do I want to? I could, but what brings me joy? What brings me happiness? Where's my passion aligned? And that's in this work, whatever we call it. It's in the work. And so I am committed, as many of my peers are committed to doing this work. Now we just have to find a home to do it where it's appreciated, where it's valued, and where people see the true benefit from a people perspective, but also from a corporate citizenship perspective. We just got to find those right homes and, do the work in places where they want the work to be done.
Yeah, I love what I feel like is a thread through you, which is how you spoke of joy, about how you are really helping people thrive in life, basically. That's what you're doing. Call it what you want, call it
Yeah.
what we want. That's what we're doing. That, this is really a thread of humankind. This is about how we're being welcoming and inviting to all of us to be able to achieve at our best levels what's possible, giving us a chance that there's opportunities that we can actually try to do. We could actually try to achieve. We can take the steps towards whatever that might be, but getting
Yep.
that opportunity and actually showing people they have that light, that they have those skills, that they have this untapped potential. That's all we're doing. That's all you're doing, I feel
It,
like.
is good people connection,
Yeah.
right? And so I often talk to leaders because folks get overwhelmed, right? And I appreciate the fact that a lot of leaders are also doing their own work, right? And so they're working leaders. And often, people, I think, for survival need to segment, right? So today I'm going to work on performance management. Tomorrow I'm going to work on how to create the widget. On Friday, I'm going to be a DE&I leader. And so they segment sometimes because it's
Mm.
just easier to put things in compartments. But I say DE&I is about just being a good leader, just being good people. Just being good people. And being a good person means showing up, listening to others in a way that they want to be heard, and then figuring out what you can do to give them the best opportunity, to your point, to live their possibility. And that's what the work is all about. Ultimately, there are tactics, there are tools, there are strategies. But when I get people to understand that it's about connection, no matter what your differences are, it's about the connection. That's when we start to break down barriers for folks and say, again, it's just what you do every single day.
Yeah.
Like you said, most of us want to show up and be good people. So, how do we tap into that? This is what it means to be a good person. And how do we tap into that, particularly for leaders who are, demonstrating what it means? Folks are looking at leaders for evidence. And so, Mr. or Mrs. Leader, what are you doing to show evidence? Because whether you're doing something intentionally or not, it's showing up. You might not like what they're saying about you, but they're saying something. So help me help you figure out how you show up in a way that's authentic and that shows true connection and value for your employees.
Yeah, we never can look at ourselves like someone else looks at us.
Absolutely.
Never. Like we'll never see directly what we look like, how we're perceived. I mean, we could try, like everything you're saying, I think about identity through integrity and authenticity with how we connect the dots of our words that we use. Is it backed up by our behaviors? And is it
Absolutely.
tied to something that's for the greater good of purpose, of values? Many, many companies I've worked with have values or they have policies, or even they kind of lump DEI as a policy that we need to be compliant to rather than actually live these out loud as the way of working, the way of being. Because there's a difference of doing something. We're not doing these programs. We're
Right.
actually being better human beings, better leaders, using your words, creating that space where we could bring people in to thrive.
Yep, absolutely. I love that. It's the being. We often get caught up in the doing. As I mentioned earlier, when you lose your identity around where you work or your position, it requires you to think about, who am I? Who do I want to be versus what do I do? And that was a really hard transition for me because, again, I worked my butt off, right? And so sought comfort in knowing that I had risen to different levels or I have done great things in other companies. But when I had to really pull that back and say, who are you, Nicole? Other people have told you who you are, you've shown up in these spaces, you've been there for others, but how do you say who you are? How do you live that every single day, no matter where you are? Home, work, what company A, company B? How do you do that every single day? And so that being is something that I think we don't give enough credit to, just how to be versus how to do, because we all can do something, right? You can teach somebody what to do. You can't really teach people how to be, right? In the true sense of just being your authentic self, and we hope that that means being good, but that's a whole different conversation. But how do you teach people how to be authentically is really, I think, where the real work is and where the sweet spot is, where they buy in to how to be versus buy into let me just do that because it will mean that I'm doing something that will be rewarded. And it's a very different mindset, right? Very different mindset. And so that being, I think, though, is a revelation that comes differently for different people. And I just want to be. I've worked hard enough. I'm at an age, I just want to be. How about that? I just want to be. I just want to be who I was meant to be. I just want to be the best mom, the best wife, the best sister, the best daughter, right? The best friend. I want to be, the employee that helps other people be who they want to be. And that's, I think, so important, but it takes time to get there. And I just want to be. Can I just be, Darrin? Can I just
Yes. 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 I
you?
want you to be you, because that's, back to your point about manifestation, that's who we
Yeah.
become.
Yeah.
I think as we think about our day and think about what's happening in our day, I think using inquiry could really allow us to see how
Yeah.
we're being. And that's the point, as you've been making, about being present, about looking at what really matters, what those connections are. Are we being authentically who we want to be? Yet, if we're not checking in on that, then we're just doing, we're stuck reacting, we're stuck being divisive, we're stuck protecting, we're stuck trying to get to the job that it doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Yeah.
How are we being? Because how we're being and are we finding joy in that being? That's everything. People see it. People run through brick walls for each other. They'll do whatever
Absolutely.
it takes.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting because to your point around reflection and getting feedback, it is key. And I don't know that we're always preparing ourselves to ask for direct feedback, but it's amazing how feedback comes to us in ways that we would have never imagined, right? And so, you know, 9 months ago, when I was going through my transition, I had so many wonderful people that I hadn't talked to really or hadn't done a lot of work with, reach out and say, Nicole, you have no idea of the
Mm.
impact that you made for me and for the company. And I was like, wow, that's what I'm talking about. I didn't ask for that, but this unforeseen circumstance gave me an opportunity to get that reflection, to get that feedback from others, even when I didn't ask. And I kept all of those messages because I knew that at one point or another, I would need to go back to those messages to remind me of who I am, to remind me that what I want to be is reflecting and showing up for others. And that is powerful. And I pull those things out on a regular basis. I'm like, okay, you did that. Okay, your intentions really match, your impact. And that's so important. I intended to do X, Y, and Z. And the feedback has suggested that I did exactly that. And
Mm.
if that wasn't enough, I was in circumstances where I met some incredible people that I didn't know before, like you, Darrin. Like, Julie Crass, I knew before. I did a podcast with her, but she showed up for me in different ways. And people have been showing up in ways that I could have never imagined. One, it has affirmed me. They have sent me position opportunities. They have sent me messages and said, I'm just checking in. I know we didn't really work together, but I need you to know that you made an impact. And so, how are you? The universe is a wonderful thing. When you put goodness out in the universe, it comes back to you. And I'm telling you, that boomerang effect that we talked about is real. And that's how I know that I've been able to be authentic, because that authenticity is coming back to me. People are showing up for me in ways that I could have never imagined, and offering, not just saying, "Hey, how you doing?" but, "Hey, how you doing and what can I do to help?" Listen, Linda, this is what I'm talking about. And this is where you know, again, your intentions match your impact, and that there are true opportunities to create legacy as we go back to what's important. And I've been able to do that. And I want to do more of that. And I realize I'm going to do that when I can just be who I am, be at a place where people can accept that, and be at a place where that can be rewarded and not sort of smashed down for the good of fitting in to any one particular place or another.
What a gift to hear the impact that you're
Yes.
making and how it's lined up to how you want to be,
Yeah.
the values that you're bringing out to the world. What a gift. I think it's another idea for all of us as leaders too, or as human beings, just to share with other people. How do
Yeah.
we matter? It doesn't have to be events where people might lose their roles or are transitioning. Yeah, that's a good time to do it. We should do that this time of year. We should do that to
Yes.
start 2025, show people how they really matter to us. And this other thing that you're talking about is listening is so important because you're listening to yourself. It sounds funny, yet you're being self-reflective
Yep.
and you're controlling your narrative. You're building your legacy by walking the talk. You're walking it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're listening to it. You're observing what's happening in the space, even though it might be tiring at times, yet it's
Mhm.
rewarding in many other times and expansive. Nicole, I'm curious about what you think about the name of this show. So it's called Live Your Possible. What does that mean to you? And
Yeah.
what tips or ideas do you have for the listener to start on their journey to
Yeah.
go live their possible too?
So I love the title of the podcast. And I think it's one of those things that we have to keep in mind as we move through different stages of our journey. And so I think I start with what you just ended with around being reflective. I don't know that we can really live our possible if we don't sit back, take some quiet time to reflect, and understand what's really important to us. Living your possible for me means, again, aligning intentions with impact. It means aligning everything that you bring to the table, passion, skills, purpose, to do something that will make your life more fulfilling and make the life of others even more fulfilling. Right? Living your possible means being okay for the journey. It will be bumpy, there will be great times, but be open to the process. Possibility for me equals being open to the process. If we can't be open, we'll never get to possible. And so that, space of possible will move every single day, and it should, right? Goals should change. Where what you wanted 20 years ago might be different than what you want right next year. But the possible is always there no matter where it is. It is a moving target and we must keep going. But at the end of the day, if you know what you want, if you align your actions to have the impact that you want, then anything is possible. And so go live it and just be possible. Be possible. And so, for everyone that's listening, again, the journey will not be the same as anybody else's journey. The journey will not always be roses. I don't care how many social media platforms people have where everything looks great. They're dealing with some stuff. And so let's try not to match our dreams to somebody else's dream. Let's have what our own possible is and be convicted in what the possibility is and move towards that space.
Beautiful. I really appreciate you, Nicole. I adore everything you're doing. I can't wait to hear about the next chapter, what's ahead. I wish you the best to you and your family in 2025. I look forward to working with you. I think there's a lot of possibilities that are
Possibility.
ahead of us. Before we stop chatting here, just curious, is there anything else on the top of your mind? Anything else you wanted to share before we head our ways and go get ready for the holidays?
No, the only thing I'll say is, wishing everyone a wonderful holiday. To remember and keep in mind what's really important. Doing will be doing, will be doing. Being is where it's really at. And so how do we show up and just be with those that we love and with ourselves? And so in that vein, be all that you can be for the holiday season and enjoy. Life is short. Let's live it to the fullest.
Thank you, Nicole. Happy holidays.
Same to you.
That's all for today's episode. If you liked the show, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Live Your Possible dares to unlock your fullest potential and become an avenue for others to do the same. Join the community by visiting ignitehappy.com. It's time to discover endless possibilities with equal opportunity for all. See you again next week for more insights on how you can live your possible.